Good evening and welcome to the Tuesday, October 18th, 2016 meeting of the Long Meadow School Committee. I'd like to call the meeting to order. This meeting is being recorded and aired live by LCTV. It is also being live streamed on longmeadow.org. It is also a legal requirement for anybody else who's recording to disclose this. We would like to start with a Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
First on our agenda tonight is correspondence. Our recorded correspondence for tonight's meeting is an email from Miriam Gordon received on September 10th, 2016 regarding Booster Club fundraising. A letter from Ms. Shalina Semexant dated September 23rd, 2016 supporting question 2 for the November 8th election. And a memo from Mr. Donald Jarvis of the LPVC Career and Technical Education Center dated October 5th, 2016 regarding the Student of the Month Awards. The Long Meadow students recognized for September 2016 are, if someone could help me with pronunciation, I don't want to mispronounce, Natalie Klazak, thank you, Ashley Matthews, and Ashley Matthews again. Okay. Did you want to say anything about that, Andy, or no? No, we'll wait. Okay. All right, so next on the agenda is the approval of the minutes. Are there any changes to the minutes? And do I have a motion?
I move the school committee approve the minutes of September 27th, 2016 school committee meeting as presented.
Second. Are there any changes to the minutes? Okay, all those in favor? The minutes are approved for the September 27, 2016 meeting. Next, we have visitor comments, and we do not have visitors tonight. Next on our agenda is announcements and recognitions. Does anybody have any announcements or recognitions tonight? Okay, so we'll move right on into our new business with guest speakers. Mr. Andy Churchill is with us tonight. He's the director of the Lower Pioneer Valley Educational Collaborative. That is a mouthful.
Yes, it is.
Thank you for coming tonight. And we'll go ahead.
Well, thank you for having me. This is
Your presentation.
on this way with the green light, right? Good to go. Ready to go?
Yes,
Okay.
yes.
So I just wanted to come and do sort of an annual update and say hello from your collaborative. You have in your packet this annual report that I put together. I also brought tonight sort of a one-pager that's the basis for, it's just sort of an overview document of sort of why we do what we do. And basically, the collaborative, there are 26 of these collaboratives around the state, and they originated largely in the 70s with special education legislation, where districts started to realize that in order to comply with the legislation, where they had low incidence kids with particular needs, they could do better together than separately by combining their courses in a co-location model. So collaboratives started forming around special education issues, and then once they started collaborating, they found other areas in which to do better together than separately. So as I said, there's 26 of them around the Commonwealth. The Lower Pioneer Valley Educational Collaborative is comprised of 7 founding districts, including Long Meadow. The other districts are Agawam, East Long Meadow, Hamden, Wilbraham, Ludlow, Southwick, Tolland, Granville, and West Springfield. basically what we are looking to do is to provide high-quality shared programs and services in a cost-effective manner. So in terms of the values listed on this sort of strategic overview, we're talking about high-quality programs, quality, we're talking about efficiency, helping districts save money by working together, talking about equity, helping districts offer additional programs than they might on their own to meet the different educational needs of their students. And we are fairly entrepreneurial. We adapt as needs adapt. If there's not a need for a program, we close it down. If there's a need for a new program, we look to open that up if it's something that can be done more effectively and efficiently by group process than by individual districts. So you can see in the report that I gave you, there are sort of the key areas of services that we're providing now. There's career and technical education. We have we're the only collaborative that's offering career and technical education. And in your packet, there's a
okay.
report.
Got it. Thank you.
That
Okay.
has a listing of services.
Thanks, Andy.
Sorry there's sort of this
I thought you-
little chart at
it
the
had
bottom
just
that's a
gotten handed
summary,
out.
but
Okay.
there's a little more detail in the report that's in your packet, and I guess I'll walk through that.
Okay.
On the second page of that, there's a list of services, and the Career Tech program is the one that had the Student of the Month that you mentioned earlier, and basically it's a half-day program which enables students to maintain their membership in their home district, so they can take their academic courses in their home district. They can take AP courses if they want, and then they can have access to a state-of-the-art technical center for career education for half the day. So they go half the day in their home district, half the day at Career Tech. And we have about 465 students in that, in 13 shops at this point in that, as of last year. We also offer, as I mentioned, the starting point for collaboratives is special education. We have special and alternative education. We have programs for students with a wide variety of needs, whether it's social, emotional, autism, medically fragile, or developmental disabilities. We also provide several alternative programs for students who may not have individual education plans, but just they're not being successful in their home school setting. And so we have a smaller school setting where they can get more attention, more counseling. And so we offer a variety of programs that way. We have about 116 students last year in 12 different programs. Some of those programs are offered at our Brush Hill, West Springfield location, but a number of them are offered in classrooms that we lease from the various member districts. So we do lease a class. We have one program at the Glenbrook Middle School in Longmeadow. We have another program in East Longmeadow, and we have several classrooms in Hampden Wilbraham and in Ludlow school districts. So we offer our programs through arrangements with the districts. If we do provide a program in a district, if they provide a classroom, we do lease the classroom for $6,000 per classroom, and we also pay $1,200 for utilities and other expenses. So there is some compensation for districts for providing that real estate, and we're grateful for it. We also provide school transportation services. 6 of our districts use us for special education transportation, and 5 of our districts use us for the big yellow buses, the regular ed transportation. In addition, so those are our big 3, the Career Tech, the special and alternative education, and transportation. In addition, we provide municipal Medicaid reimbursement. So we are the ones we have some people who don't mind going out and searching through the couch cushions for the change that falls through and it is too painful for most people to collect, but there's a lot of money out there for medically required services that can get reimbursed from federal programs. So that's what we do for all of our member districts, plus another 43 or so municipalities. Last year we secured $1.82 million in reimbursements for LPVEC members and $9 million for all participants. So there's some significant money that we're getting, doing the paperwork to get reimbursement for. We also have a cooperative purchasing of energy program. We have We have done work with natural gas, electricity, and those are the two major ones. And we also do that in multiple municipalities with total bids of about $40.6 million in FY15 and collective savings of about $11.5 million based on those bids. In addition, we have a variety of educator supports. Some of the key things that we do, we have a curriculum director who convenes the curriculum directors from the various districts. And this year they've organized a number of professional development sessions for some of the educators that may be small numbers in each district, but so they don't always get the most targeted professional development, but working together, we've come up with professional development for nurses, for counselors, and several others of those smaller
PE teachers, I
PE
think, right?
teachers, yeah. And so each of our, or several of our districts have volunteered to offer a classroom space, and we're working with Westfield State to bring in content experts so that we'll have offerings for those folks who normally might not get targeted professional development.
You're
So-
doing that on your site? Or-
We're doing that, we're offering some at our sites, but most of them, I think, are happening in the member districts. Agawam is hosting the nurses, for example, or, Long Meadow might be hosting
'Cause that comes
PE
up a
teachers or
lot,
whatever. Yeah.
that complaint typically from the teachers union, but the issue is always that our dates don't line up, and so to try and go to the collaborative wouldn't work
Right.
necessarily. So if you're bringing that to the schools, that's great.
So with the election this year, most of the districts have that day off, and that's made the calendars overlap in a way that they sometimes don't.
Yeah.
It's something that we do talk about among the curriculum directors and among the superintendents, that the more we can get together on calendars and have some, at least one day a year where they could overlap, we can do more of that kind of thing. And, it's tricky. There's a lot of things that go into scheduling, as you know. But it is something that we're offering this year, and that's an outgrowth of the curriculum directors Java Light group, which meets monthly and talks about, last month they were talking about the textbook adoption cycle and how each district handles it, and there was a lot of back and forth about that. They talk about educator evaluation, or they talk about licensure, and so there's people who are singletons in their districts but coming together can gain by talking with each other, and we do those Java Light groups with superintendents, we do it with curriculum directors, we do it with special ed directors, we have principals from our career tech who get together. And so that's if there's a common area of interest, we'll have those kind of Java-like groups. Business managers also for Western Mass. We also have a curriculum director who is responsible both for ensuring that our teachers are in our programs are continuing to learn and to offer what our students need, and to facilitate workshops that are requested by the curriculum directors or the superintendents. And last year we had a particular initiative around the new Massachusetts science standards. So we happened to hire, the curriculum director was the science chair over at Hampden Wilbraham before she came to us, and so she had a particular area of expertise and interest in science, and so we were able to offer that to all of our member districts, and did a number of workshops where teachers were coming and unpacking the new standards and figuring out how to align their curriculum to it. So those are just examples
Did we take advantage of that?
I believe you
At our
did,
science curriculum last year.
but I'd have to check with Sabre. I could
Yeah,
find
I'm
out,
not sure.
but it seemed to be an area that was of very strong interest among all of the districts. So it was a sort of a slam dunk for us to offer it. And I think she did a large number of sessions, and they were open to all of our member districts, as well as some non-member districts came as well to defray some of the costs. So that's just sort of a summary of the types of services we're offering currently. Just, in terms of the report, you can see the geographic area served, the membership, you can see that, where your students are. Longmeadow only has about 16 students in career and technical education. You have 13 students in special education as of last year. You know, as you saw in the report that came in, the Longmeadow students are often some of our best students. So we're always happy to have them participating. There's also just a couple of areas from last year on the last couple pages here that are sort of selected areas where we've made some changes or some recent developments. One of them is that we opened a new machine technology program, and we got a couple of grants from the state to help support buying state-of-the-art milling machine, CNC milling machines and lathes, as well as a computer lab for CAD/CAM instruction. And so we now, we just had the ribbon cutting a couple weeks ago, and we piloted it last spring with a few students, but we're now fully operational this year, and we're accepting our first full class this year. There's a lot of interest, and there's a lot of jobs that are out there for machinists, for people with advanced machine technology skills. And we have an instructor who is able to teach kids he talks about 3 different levels. There's the kids who just want to get a job after high school. They can get a job making $23 an hour loading a truck at one of these advanced machining places. With a little bit more training, they can be making $30 an hour as a machinist or somebody who's programming the machines and operating them, or doing quality control. And then there's the kids who are going to go off to college and do sort of engineering and then come back into the field and do design work. So we are targeting the curriculum and at people at all 3 of those levels. And the types of prerequisites for being in a program like that require some facility with math, fractions, decimals, and a ability to work with some close tolerances, because the types of parts and things that they're making are airplane parts or medical technology, and there's tolerances down to micron level. And so it's an exciting program for us. We're excited to have something that's high tech and that's supporting an industry where there actually are a lot of family wage jobs out there, and there is an aging workforce of guys, mostly guys in their 50s and 60s, who are looking toward retirement. And these shops are, they need, there's demand for workers out there. So this is sort of a high-profile program that we're excited about. We're also planning, now that we've got that one underway, we're looking to consolidate a couple of other programs. We have a printing program and a design and visual communications program that we'll be combining to make a digital design and publishing or digital design and printing program. So instead of the old mechanical printing presses, everything's going digital. And so this will be a sort of combined computer design and printing, and we're now putting together a grant proposal to see if we can set up sort of a print center in the school that would enable kids to learn all aspects of design and printing in the digital age. So a couple things happening in career tech. And in special education, we co-located several of our alternative behavioral programs. We used to have several programs in different locations, and we had a limited number of staff in each of them, and our new special education director last year looked at them and said, we can have a much better staffed program for kids who have largely similar social emotional needs if we pull them together in a 3-classroom program at our Brush Hill facility. So we've done that this year, and so in that program we have academic teachers, we have special education teachers, we have a mental health counselor, we have a social worker, we have career counselors, and we have classroom assistants, and they're all in one location in an integrated curriculum that's standards-based, sort of modular curriculum. And some of the kids who've been out in some of the smaller programs came in this year, and they saw, we're actually in a very beautiful building that's on a hillside in West Springfield. It used to be the Western Mass Electric building before they sold it to my predecessors. And
Is that on Riverdale?
It's
No.
off of Riverdale.
Yeah.
You go up the hill, up Brush Hill Avenue off of Riverdale.
Okay.
And it's up on that hill
Okay.
overlooking Holyoke and Chicopee. And so that's where our career tech program is in one wing, and now we have what we're calling the LPVEC Academy, which is several co-located special and alternate education programs that are in the other side of the building. So we have, so we're upgrading that program too, and we feel, I think the kids felt like they were in a place where they're still getting individualized attention, but it's just a nicer environment with more support. So the last thing I would mention is that we host the Pioneer Valley DSAC, which is a support center from the Department of Education. It's the District and School Assistance Center. They're from the Department of Education. They're primarily focused on level 3 districts, but they have a variety of data analyst types and literacy and math support types there. And we actually we share a couple of data specialists who they share one full-time equivalent doing Department of Education DSAC work, and the other half of their work they're employed by us and available for contract work on data analysis. They've done some work on, they evaluate grants. They have done some program evaluations. They've done some work with districts on student engagement, going in and sort of evaluating classroom activity and so on. So they're a resource that's available. 2 years ago, Long Meadow contracted with us to have them come over and do some crunching of the MCAS data and talk to the principals about patterns that they saw in the data, so that the principals could think about what areas they wanted to improve. So that's a resource that's available as well. So we're out there. We're an extension of you. We only exist because if we have programs that are worth the district's supporting, that's why we exist. And so if you just wanted to make you aware that we're here.
Yeah,
So,
thank you.
Thank you.
Does anybody have questions for Andy? Russ?
I have a couple.
Okay.
So one question is just going to seem kind of strange, but Glenbrook, your space over at Glenbrook, so we're talking about the middle schools and potentially renovating.
Mhm.
And I understand that the space it's not totally clear, I don't think, who owns it. Because I think the collaborative built it, put that addition on Glenbrook,
Oh,
and that
yeah.
you
Right.
have space
Yeah.
there. So I'm not expecting you to answer this right now, but I think that's something that may come up over time is the Glenbrook space. What is the situation in that space? Do you own it? Do we own it? Is it, I think we'll need to talk about that.
Yeah, I mean, just along those lines, we were in the construction business for a while, back before new regulations made that not so advantageous for anybody.
Yeah.
But we did, we had portables, which were sort of, separate, and then we had modulars, which were actually part of a building or added on fairly, structurally, and that's what this is.
It is.
And so,
And I know
it gets
the building-
complicated. The real estate aspects get complicated. I think we include, we have a mass development bond that pays for a number of our real estate efforts. We did, when we refinanced that bond, remove those kind of small classrooms from that,
Mhm.
so that we have the flexibility to deal with those on an individual basis. So we're happy to
Okay.
talk with you about it. We have had a couple of portables in some of the other districts that we weren't using anymore, and we gave them back, to the districts. We can talk,
Yeah.
that would be,
And if we had this is down the road, but
Right.
if we had a project, we'd have to talk about how I know with other school systems, they've talked about putting in collaborative space into the new building and all that, so.
Yeah, I know. Tom had mentioned that at some point, that that might become something to discuss, and we're
Oh,
happy to
okay.
do that. Yeah.
The other thing that I think, and part of the reason you were asked to come, is the town had mentioned or requested information about your OPEB liabilities as a collaborative, and we got some information from your attorney, I think their opinion, but could you kind of describe that situation? I think the town's concern was, does the collaborative have this big unfunded pension and retiree insurance liability that we may owe something towards at some point in time? I think that was kind of answered, but just for the public, if you could kind of
Sure.
describe that quickly.
The concern was that if we got to a point where the member districts decided to dissolve the collaborative, would the, post-employment retirement benefits be a liability that would be somehow hidden, that is a liability for the collaborative right now as long as we're in business, but if we went out of business, would that then become something that, reverts to the member districts? So we talked to our lawyer, but we also talked to our auditor to get a sense of what happens, what would happen in the case of dissolving the collaborative, which of course we hope never happens. But if it did, we have approximately $21 million in real estate assets, plus other things, other capital things like school buses and, all sorts of other stuff. And approximately some subset of that is still being paid off, but it's about, I'm trying to remember the exact numbers. I think it's about $12 million that's free and clear. And so we would have a net, and as we continue to pay that off, obviously that asset level rises. But at this point, we have 12 or 13 million in net assets on real estate. And then in terms of our OPEB liability, the last time I had heard, it was about $16 million. But that's including currently retired staff as well as currently employed staff based on actuarial calculations.
Yeah.
So what our auditor pointed out is that under the new Municipal Modernization Act, there's no more, allocating the years that you worked for this organization are
that's gone.
allocated there. It's basically wherever you retire from, that's where your benefits are allocated. And so if we were to cease operation, almost all of our current employees would go and be employed elsewhere. So their OPEB liability would go with them. So if our total liability now, including those folks, is 16 million, and probably 2/3 of them are, 2/3 of our liability is current employees and 1/3 might be retirees, that goes elsewhere. So the net assets of 12 or 13 million are significantly larger than the liability that would be there if we dissolved it for the people who would be retired at that point. So those net assets would be distributed among the member districts, but there's no net additional liability that you would need to worry about as
Do
far
you
as.
have an OPEB trust as well? Are you saving towards OPEB?
We have an OPEB trust. We've put an initial $250,000 payment into it. And we haven't put, I think we did that 2 or 3 years ago, maybe. I think it was before my time.
Yeah.
We haven't done it since, but it's a vehicle that's there, and we certainly could discuss at the board level whether that's where we want to put additional funding in. So we have a vehicle for doing it. We haven't, we made a down payment of $250,000, which is,
Most employers
significant,
really.
but it's not, it's a drop in the bucket.
A lot of schools are contributing nothing, so.
Yeah.
it's-
I mean, it's a pay-as-you-go problem that gets slightly bigger as you go along. So
Yep.
when you total up all of those incremental things, it adds up to a big number. But on a year-by-year basis, we think, we need to plan for it. But it's largely an accounting thing at this point.
Yeah.
It's something that people worry about, but we feel like at this point, we have the assets to cover it if we were to dissolve, and on a year-by-year basis, we're not that concerned about it.
Stephanie, a while back, you mentioned the 18 to 22-year-old program. Did you want to ask about that?
Well, I don't know if Marty wants to talk a little bit about what's going on in that.
Well, we're in the midst of pursuing a grant to assist with transitional services for students in that 18 to 22 range.
Okay.
Maybe a $30-something thousand grant that will help us with that planning. But it's something that I think, listening to Jean Fontaine, it's an area that she's targeted for improvement.
And is that something the collaborative offers right now?
There are some collaborative programs that serve students in that 18 to 22 range.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I know the life skills program and some of the vocational programming at in Hampden Wilbraham
Yeah.
serve students in that age
Those are the
range.
programs that, there's this great end-of-year celebration where those kids are, you know, head out into their, you know, they get work experience, and they're generally, the goal is to make them as employable and as self-sufficient as possible.
Is it only in Hampden Wilbraham that you're serving 18 to 22-year-olds?
That's where
other
that,
sites?
that program is.
Okay.
We have some of the, there's sort of a division, there's some of the heavier autism programs in Ludlow, and, but the life skills and career-related ones were in Hampden Wilbraham, as I recall.
Okay.
Thanks.
Yeah.
Thank you.
We also had a special education directors meeting recently, and there were 3 areas that came up as potentially of interest going forward that we're going to be, you know, exploring more. But one was an elementary social emotional program for kids who really need help in the elementary grades. There's you know, the heavy autism, or more sort of an autism institute, you know, sort of even more autism programs, and some sort of recovery high school to deal with the opioid crisis. So we were hearing that from, that those are areas. There is a program in the state where you can get, there's a partnership between the Department of Public Health and the Department of Education, where there's state funding to support the clinical aspects of a recovery high school if you create a high school that's focused on clinical recovery. And so, you know, we want to sort of see what the offerings are in the area, and see if that's an area of need. Any one of those 3 areas might be something that we try piloting going forward. But that's the kind of thing we'll do, is we'll listen to the special ed directors or the curriculum directors or the principals, and if there's a need that's bubbling up, we'll explore it, we'll pilot something, and if it seems to have legs, then we can institutionalize it. So those are 3 areas that at least are on our radar.
That would be incredible to have something like that in this area, that type of service.
Yeah.
Because you know, Western Mass is lacking so much in services like that.
Yeah.
And it was going through my head about working with the court system somehow. I don't know if there's a way to collaborate with the court system on that, but.
There is a model that's out there.
Yeah.
You know, we need to see. I had heard last year there was a recovery high school in Springfield. But what I've been hearing lately is it's more of a recovery center, but it's not a high school.
Okay.
And so.
So they're not providing education,
You're
they're
still left with the education piece versus the clinical piece, whereas.
Right.
If we had a unified one with some support for the clinical side, it might be something that could be a benefit for a small number of kids from each district.
I know, I would be interested to know if the judges over at juvenile court would be able to give some insight also in that area.
In sentencing, maybe, to something
Yeah,
like
because
that, as opposed to.
that's the whole concept of drug court and, you know, with adults, but then also thinking about that in terms of juveniles would be an amazing initiative and progressive for this area, I think. You know, something to look into.
So it's something that, it's on our radar, we'll
That's
dig into
great.
it a little bit, and we'll see if it's viable. But
Yeah.
again, we have to be entrepreneurial enough so that it needs to break even. So
Right.
if we can make it break even and make it worthwhile for the districts, we'll do it. If not, we won't.
So I want to thank Andy for coming out. He's been a great partner. One of their core values is responsiveness, and I've always found the collaborative to be very responsive to our PD needs, our special education needs, and so that's real. They live and breathe that all the time. They're very nimble. They adjust from year to year to stay of service to us. For folks at home, I know this committee knows Liz is our representative on the collaborative board, and Andy tells me is a very faithful attendee at meetings.
Absolutely.
And so we
We'll see you
appreciate
tomorrow.
that. And the collaborative agreement, if anyone would like to see a copy of that, we can get that to you. It was most recently re-signed in either late 14 or early 15. So if anyone needs a copy, let us know. So, but we appreciate you coming out, Andy. Sure. If there's anything else.
No, I really appreciate the work that you do, very, very much, and really value our partnership. And if there's anything that I can do, please feel free to contact me, and
Great,
appreciate your time.
great. Well, thanks for having me.
Thank you, Andy.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Tom, we'll see you soon for
Yes, you will.
budget talks.
Yes, you will. Thanks, Andy.
Have a good night.
You too.
Good night.
Okay. So Stacy, do you want to come up to the microphone? Stacy Smith is here tonight, our enrichment coordinator, to give a report.
Hi, how's everyone
Updates.
doing? Thank you so much for having me. This is, my gosh, I think my 8th or 9th year as enrichment coordinator for Longmeadow Public Schools. Initially, our program was just a summer program. We've had a summer school program in Longmeadow for decades, actually. And more recently, since the 2013-2014 school year, we've also added after-school enrichment and a lifelong learning program to our enrichment endeavors in order to really just offer even more opportunities to not only students in our district, but also to adults in the community. So our summer program runs for the entire month of July, 4 weeks. We have 4 one-week sessions. The classes run from 8 to 10 and 10 to 12 during those one-week sessions. Our after-school enrichment program runs in fall, winter, and spring. There are once a week, classes meet for once a week for 5 weeks and for an hour and a half after school at all of our schools. The lifelong learning program also runs in fall, winter, and spring and meets once a week. The classes meet once a week for 5 weeks for an hour and a half, and all of those classes are held at the high school. In addition to working with the enrichment programming and running the enrichment programming in the district, I also help coordinate with our outside vendors to offer additional programming after school, because we aren't always able to offer everything that we would like to. So we have some vendors who offer Lego robotics classes, for example, after school as well. And then we have a vendor who offers foreign language classes before and after school too. I provided a detailed summary of our financials, as well as our participation, and some highlights from our surveys for all of you. And I'm just going to give you a really quick overview of each of the programs, and then of course give you the opportunity to ask any questions that you might have. This past year was a very successful year. We had a lot of really great, really interesting classes that we were able to offer to our students, and we were able to also make a little bit of money as well, which is always helpful, because that gives us a little bit more of a cushion in years to come. It gives us the opportunity to purchase additional resources for our classes and for our students, which is great. Our summer program had a profit of just under $1,000. There were 660 registrations in the program, and it was a slightly higher enrollment from the previous summer, which was fantastic. We ran 57 classes, had 21 teachers, and we had a very successful band program. Our band concert was fantastic. Within 1 week, it's amazing what our students can do just meeting for 10 hours. They put on an amazing concert during our program. We also had elementary and middle school STEM classes that were very well attended. Our art classes were very well attended. We offered a new 3D printing program this year, and for both elementary and middle school students, that class was incredibly popular. We also offer cooking classes for elementary school and middle school students, and SAT prep classes, and we also ran an algebra class for our high school students. In terms of advertising, we did expand our advertising a little bit this year. We actually advertised our offerings in the Leaf pamphlet that went home to many families, and we have a Facebook page now, which I am not the most technology savvy person when it comes to social media, but I'm trying to be pretty good about it. So we will be updating our Facebook page at the start of every program to let everyone know what some of our offerings are. And the summer program, has, like I said, it's been kind of our flagship program. It's been around for years and years and years, and we can usually depend on that program to do very well. This past year, our after-school program also, we had our most successful year too in terms of enrollment, in terms of profit. We had a profit of about $1,800 in our after-school program. We had 209 registrations over the course of the three seasons. 46 registrations higher than the previous school year, which was really fantastic. We offered 19 classes total over those 3 seasons, and we were able to offer some really interesting classes. We had a Google CS First class, which is a programming class where students actually start to learn how to kind of program video games and stuff. So that was really great. And we have a yoga class, which is incredibly popular. It's offered at all 3 of our schools during all 3, or I think at least 2 of the 3 seasons, and that class is also very heavily attended. Our new fall program is going to be starting the second full week of November, and that program sign-up information should be coming out towards the end of this week, beginning of next week for that program. We also received a LEAF grant this past year for a VEX robotics program. We do have some Lego Mindstorm robotics programs that are being offered, but we wanted to give another opportunity. So we have a grant for not only the programming, but also for training, not only for the robots, but also for training. So we are hoping to get some instructors trained and get that programming up and running as soon as possible too. We have a new reading club at Center School that's going to be offered this fall, and we're working on some really interesting things for the winter program too. We're working on a math program that is going to be offered at Wolf Swamp, and we're trying to get as much out there as possible. Just really quickly, so everyone knows, all of the programs at all of our schools are open to students from all schools. So students are welcome to come to a program at Center if they're a Wolf Swamp student. Unfortunately, we don't always have the resources or really the staffing to staff the same programming at every single school, but we do try to spread the programming out as much as we can and try to offer as many opportunities as many of the schools as possible, because we know it's certainly a challenge to try to get your child from Center School to Wolf Swamp to attend a class after school. Sometimes it's just logistically not possible. Our lifelong learning program, our adult enrichment program, this year did suffer a small loss of just under $650. We offered 4 classes over the course of the year. We offered yoga during all 3 sessions. Our yoga class yoga class for both our adults and our students tends to be really, really popular. And we offered a French class, which had a small enrollment, but the students who took the French class absolutely loved the French class.
Stacy, what school are the yoga classes offered at?
The adult enrichment yoga classes are offered at the high school.
Okay.
So they're offered usually on Tuesday afternoons at 3 o'clock at the high school.
And then the kids is
all 3 schools.
All 3 schools.
Right.
All 3 elementaries.
All 3 elementary schools.
And is the same teacher teaching at all 3?
Yes.
Lisa
Katz and Mary DeBoule teach the yoga classes at all 3 schools. Sometimes we don't have enough enrollment at one school to have both teachers teach, but they tend to kind of swap on and off if that's the case. But yes, they teach, and they are not teachers in the district, so it's a little bit easier for them because they can get from one place to the other, and they can also be available right after school, whereas our teachers, for contractual reasons, sometimes aren't available right away.
Okay.
In terms of lifelong learning, we are struggling a little bit to keep those offerings fresh and to get new and exciting ideas and try to get as many people taking advantage of that program as possible. Though, like I said, the people who do take advantage of those classes really, really enjoy them. Our survey results tend to be incredibly positive for all 3 of our programs. Pretty much everyone that is surveyed is willing to recommend our program to a friend and wants to return to our programming year after year. And that's what our goal is. The whole entire purpose of the program is to make sure that we are serving the students, the parents, the town of Longmeadow, and make sure that we have the enrichment opportunities available that people are seeking, and to provide a vehicle to deliver the opportunities that that all of our students and parents are interested in. A couple of other quick things. I just wanted to thank you all for allowing me to be here. Thank you for your continued support over the years. To thank the administration for their support over the years. It's I absolutely love the enrichment programming that we have at their district. I love working with this program. I love working with the students and seeing students from all ages take part in the program, and I hope to keep doing it for quite some time to come.
Thank you.
Questions?
Stephanie?
Hi.
First of all, it's so nice to see your face. I see your name on all the emails, and the enrichment program is fantastic.
Thank
My kids have
you.
participated. It's amazing. I have a question about the cost, and I saw in the survey it did ask people about the cost and whether it was reasonable. When I'm particularly interested when it's offered at the school, like after
Yeah.
school, not so much the summer,
Right.
although it applies too. Is there anything available for people who can't afford it or who are known to, have?
That's something that we talk about frequently, and as we kind of build a little bit of a cushion, and as we have a little bit more kind of money in reserves, I would love to be able to offer some kind of scholarship program. I think that's a really it would be really useful, because I mean, quite frankly, my parents couldn't have afforded it when I was growing up. So I think that's something that would be great for us to start to incorporate.
I
if we can.
want to say the Lego Robotics that had something, the one that is outside of enrichment had
Right.
offered something, recognizing that, and that was a much higher cost than
It
the
is.
enrichment.
It is more expensive. The outside programming tends to be.
Yeah.
We have some benefits operating in house, and we also, quite frankly, we're just trying to break even.
Right.
We're really not trying to make a profit. We want to make things as affordable to families as possible.
I know, and I'm wondering if that's something we can consider at some point, about how we make sure that we're offering enrichment to every student, especially when we have students who are known, who are on the free lunch program, making sure that they're not being left out, because the programs are amazing. So, but thank you. Yes, obviously not a money-making endeavor.
Right.
Russ?
So, in our subcommittee meeting with you,
Yeah.
we talked a little bit about the potential of doing either after school or before school kind of math, science, other types of things like that. So I think with the whole committee, we just wanted to bring that up, that's another potential idea. I mean, it's one way to deal with one of our goals was advanced learners and that type of thing, so that's one way. It wouldn't have to be just advanced learners, it could be anybody, but it's one way to have, I don't know if it would work, I don't know if it would, we need to break even, basically, is what the goal is, I think, with this program. So I don't know if that's something, it sounds like it's something you're gonna look into over time.
Something I'm
but-
absolutely open to looking into and exploring. Definitely. I think the
Yeah.
whole point is to bring whatever we possibly can to students that are interested in, and more enrichment in math and science is always welcome.
Yeah,
Definitely.
so we thought it's something to look at.
Yeah, I think that's good. And when I had talked about clubs too and expanding, enrichment offers so much of that. The part in there is the cost and making sure that we're able to offer it to everyone.
Yeah.
And
Thank
we do try to keep the cost as low as we can, and we do find that in our survey responses, especially with the after school programming, people find the after school programming to be very reasonably priced.
We were talking a little bit about advertising, or you were talking a little bit about advertising during the subcommittee meeting.
Yeah.
Is the primary vehicle sending home the flyers from school?
The primary vehicle is sending home flyers and email. So
Okay.
we send
And the emails,
home
right.
emails through the district with all of the offerings that we have. I honestly think the emails hit more people even than the flyers do.
That's what I was thinking, and when you said Facebook, and I'm with you, I'm not the most savvy with social media. My kids teach me a lot, but I think, if this is right, if you do establish a Facebook page and we get parents to like the page, then it comes up in your news feed, right? I'm not on Facebook that frequently, but it seems like, is that right, Russ? That
I'm the wrong person.
My
to ask that question.
understanding of Facebook
Okay,
is yes,
I'm not
that is
asking you.
how it works.
Right.
When people like and share websites, and it shows up in your news feed, and you see the things that your friends have liked.
and then you can
posted.
invite them to like that page, right?
Yes.
So I think that would be amazing, because I think parents in Longmeadow are on Facebook. And frankly, I think people check Facebook more than notices sometimes that come home and emails.
And
So-
it's free.
Yes. So I would say don't be intimidated. Go with that. And if you need any help with spreading the word, let
I
us
might
know.
send you an email.
Please send us an email, and we will read it in response.
And say, please like our Facebook page and share with your friends.
And really, thank you so much for the enthusiasm and commitment you bring to what you do. It's really, you're a very inspiring person, and I'm very grateful to you for all you do for our town, our community.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I love doing it. I wouldn't do
You
it
can
if I
tell.
didn't.
You can tell. Yeah.
We've been working with Stacy on being more positive. And
I feel like you should run some sort of, what are they called?
Motivational.
Yeah, thank you. You should be a motivational speaker.
Come on, everyone.
Because
let's
it's
go.
I feel the whole room being filled with your enthusiasm. It's really
Thank you.
great. No,
Thank
thank
you
you.
so much.
Thank you for coming tonight.
Thanks for having me.
And you did a really good job on the financials too, by the way.
Working on that one, yeah.
Yeah.
It's important.
Yeah.
And I'm a history teacher. I'll be very open and honest. I'm a history teacher. Tom is the money guy, so I'm in his
is the money
office
guy.
a lot asking for some advice on those types of matters.
And don't forget about the rest of us. If you want to bounce ideas off of people, we can shoot out emails, that sort of thing. So
I always want ideas for classes. So
Okay.
whatever you hear that people are interested in and that they want to bring, it can sometimes be a lot easier for me to find a teacher for a specific idea than to just throw out, hey, we have a program, come up with whatever you like. And our teachers come up with great, amazing, and creative things, but if there's something in particular that you know of that is really popular in town that you think that parents and kids would like to take advantage of, definitely let me know.
I know the Ninja Warrior thing is really popular, but I mean, I'm just thinking about the liability issues with that. It's not as simple, but it is hot.
Oh yeah, it's
That's the
fun.
first thing that came to mind. Yeah. Well, thank you.
Thank you.
Very
Thank
much.
you all so much. Have a great night, everyone.
You too. Thanks,
Good night.
Stacy. Okay, next we have our administrative reports, and first is Dr. O'Shea, and he will provide us with his superintendent's report.
So there's a fairly lengthy report in your packet. I'll try and highlight a few things from that. I would like to start by talking about 2017 MCAS testing. We were, as an administrative team, confronted with the decision of what grades we would want our students to be involved with computer-based testing. The state is requiring that students in grades 4 and 8 be required to take the MCAS in a computer-based testing environment. But we had the option of setting students up in that environment in grades 3 through 8 completely. After a lot of deliberation and after assessing a lot of the educational implications, the technical specifications and the scheduling logistics, we had decided that we would stick with just testing students at grades 4 and 8. And I should note that this does not apply in any way to the high school testing. That will remain in paper format for at least the next couple of years. So the reason that we had decided to limit it to grades 4 and 8 related to the number of testing days that we would have been involved with had we expanded, had the beyond the 4 and 8 requirement. I think at the middle school, we would have gone from something like 13 testing days to 17 testing days. And so we were interested in sort of shortening the testing window. The other considerations related to the students' comfort level with the technology skills that they would need to take that MCAS test. And certainly we've done quite a bit with students' digital skills, but we just want to make sure they're comfortable with the testing platform. And so we have decided to go with the testing at grades 4 and 8 only. Frankly, there are, if we had been able to demonstrate that there was some technical reason why we couldn't test at 4 and 8, that we would have had an option to appeal to the state on that. But we feel like we've got adequate technology and the kids will be adequately prepared to take the test in the spring at grades 4 and 8. So let me maybe stop on that. I don't know if any of the committee has any questions on that. If not, I can move on.
I do have a question about the presentation for November 1st, but do you want to touch on that first? Or?
November 1st, the
MCAS, you want to do a district assessment?
Oh, right,
report?
yeah. So as while we're on the topic of MCAS, we had kicked around the possibility of coming to you with an assessment report at your November 1st meeting. And so we would have the principals come to you, and Sue Bertrand and I would present the results of the 2016 MCAS tests, maybe identify some areas that we're proud of that we should celebrate, and identify some areas that might be targets for improvement, and hopefully convey to you our plans for addressing any needs. So that would be on November 1st, and if you have any specific questions that you'd like us to address, or any thoughts on that presentation, we're certainly open. I'll be meeting with the principals tomorrow to talk about it, so.
Yeah, on that note, just to emphasize your point, Marty, if there are questions from the school committee, well, there are only a few of us here, it's always great if we can get it to the staff before the meeting so they are more equipped to answer the questions. But, questions also do come up during the meeting as well, so.
Yeah, I think in order to do that, we'd have to see
The
information
data, yeah.
first. But
What's all online?
Well, I'd want to see what their presentation is going to be,
Oh,
too.
what their-
Because it's, but the other thing is, last year, it was kind of, I asked if we could look at the data with the last 4 years. So this year, 4 years prior, just so we have 5 years of total data, just because I think it's easier to see how are we doing this year and also compared to over time. Because in isolation, it's hard. I mean, the committee members might know, but I think the public won't have a good idea of what the trend really looks like. And then I know Stephanie had some issues about the way it was presented as far as comparing one cohort to another. And so I think if we saw the presentation in advance, it would help so that we don't ask questions
Okay.
at the meeting. We'd have it,
Sure.
ready to go.
Yeah, we'll try and pull that together. It's a lot to pull together because you're
Yeah.
kind of boiling down information, a lot of data to hopefully a coherent and presentation for you, but we'll try to get that to you ahead
Yeah.
of time.
They
if at
did
all
the
possible.
presentation last year, so you could probably use that. It's just last year we did like 2 or 3 meetings, and so if we could just combine it into one meeting and just show all the data at once, it'd probably be easier.
It was stretched out over 2 or 3 meetings, the assessment.
Yeah, what happened
presentation.
is we had a presentation with just that year, and then myself and I think some other committee members asked, could we
Yeah.
see the last 4 years compared to that year? And
Yeah.
so then there was another presentation. And
So I'm looking at the, Sue Bertrand, who's not with us tonight, has begun to put together some of the presentation slides, and I'm just looking at it now, and it appears that she is bringing it back to 2012, so you'll have 5 years.
Okay.
You'll be able to compare a particular grade level over 5 years.
So my nagging worked.
It worked. There you go. Yeah.
She's presenting district-wide numbers, and then each school is presenting?
Yeah, the thought was that Sue would offer sort of a district overview, and then I would ask the elementary principals to kind of work collaboratively to identify some areas, again, that are worthy of celebration, identify some areas that we need to address, and then talk to you about what we're going to do to address those. And then I think what you'll also, an important point to remember is that at your first meeting in December, the principals will come back to you with school improvement plans, And if there are particular sort of deficiencies relating to MCAS, it could be that the school improvement plans will address those as well. So there'll be a couple of opportunities for you to hear from the individual principals. I value kind of looking at this collaboratively with the elementary principals, understanding that every school has some unique needs and every school might have some unique successes or things they're struggling with. But, for us to kind of move forward, I think it's important that we look at it, at the elementary span, the middle school, and then obviously the high school. So hopefully there'll be a good balance of looking at what's happening over a grade span, but you'll also, by the end of your meeting in December, you'll have a sense of what's happening at each school specifically. And it looks like Sue has some good trend data that she's pulling together for us, so, yeah.
So the
Does that-
question,
Yep.
Does that help? Yeah.
the question is, would it be, if it's possible, I think maybe it would be ideal for us to have the presentation prior to the meeting.
Yep.
The question is, if that deadline is in some way oppressive, if it could be moved to a later meeting, so that, I just think it's always beneficial for school committee to have information before meetings so that we can ask questions in preparation.
Yeah.
Rather than, if we're getting brand new information at the meeting, it can be challenging to.
If we got it to you, let's say your meeting's on a Tuesday, if we had that presentation to you on the prior Wednesday, would that be
That'd be phenomenal.
sufficient?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. We'll shoot for that. It could be
Eh.
a tough turnaround.
Yeah,
Since
I mean,
schools
I
are-
don't, yeah.
They're still in the process of kind of analyzing and.
Well, I don't want it to be more, I don't want it to be more difficult for
Yeah.
the schools. I want to make it a better dialogue.
Yeah.
So that they feel comfortable and at least prepared for some of the questions that committee members may have coming into the meeting.
Absolutely.
Because in the past, it seems like when committees are getting the information and they're being asked questions, it can be uncomfortable, it can be tense, it can, for staff. And
Yeah.
I'd like to be as prepared as we can. And, being mindful of deadlines and the pressure that
Yeah,
goes along with that.
we'll try and get that to you as early as we can the week prior to your meeting. And.
I mean, I think Friday's fine.
Yeah,
I don't,
okay.
I don't,
That would be helpful if it,
I don't think it needs to be by Wednesday unless anybody feels differently.
Well, the
I think-
packet is usually Thursday, right? So if you
Well,
did it.
It's
Yeah.
been Friday recently.
The one concern I have is last year, the way that they presented the data was off. And I had talked to Sue about that. I wouldn't want to see it on Wednesday and see that it's the same template has been followed. So that's my only
Why
concern. 'cause
don't you talk to
I-
Sue?
yeah.
I'll talk to Sue. Yeah, and I
So-
talked to her last year, so I'm hoping.
Yeah.
yeah, and
Okay.
I'd be interested in that conversation as well. I think, for me.
Right.
There's couple of thoughts. One is there's currently data available online that you have access to.
Right.
The principals and in some cases our teachers have access to. More information, they can drill down further. But there's plenty of information on the DESI website that you
Oh,
can
it's
start to
all
take a
there.
look at. So there's that. The other thought is I'm interested in hopefully telling a story. I think we want to look at this information and analyze it and present to you not just the numbers, but present to you some analysis of what we did well and why, and where we need to improve and what we're going to do about it. So that hopefully will come out of the presentation on November 1st. And then finally, the last thing I'd say is, in addition to what will be presented via, say, a PowerPoint, we will also provide for you in your packet some additional information that, might not be part of this specific PowerPoint presentation. So there'll be multiple opportunities, I think, and, for you to take a look at the results and then understand that my expectation is that the MCAS results from 2016 inform the school improvement plans that you will see at the beginning of December. So, again, what I like to say about MCAS is, it's an important indicator for us. There's rich information that tells us a lot about student progress, but in Long Meadow, we have many, many indicators of student growth and progress, and so we don't want to lose sight of some of the indicators that are tougher to present in a PowerPoint, let's say, but.
Right.
And so hopefully some of that is also reflected in the school improvement plans that you'll see in December. So between the November 1 meeting and then the school improvement plans that you'll hear about in December, I think you'll get a good sense of what we're doing with these results and how meaningful they are to us. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm very glad to hear you say that, because last year we kind of went round and round about that, but for me, the scores, mean something, but overall, if the trend in a particular location is it's going up in math over here and going down in a different location, to figure out why that is, what we're doing about it, are we going to model the one that is going in a certain direction? And I think each school has its own unique strengths, and the middle schools have done a great job of kind of becoming very similar from a score perspective. And I'd love that to happen at the elementary too, where they're all performing about the same level.
Yeah.
And I think actually they are kind of trending that way.
Yeah.
But I'd love to figure out what administration thinks about how do we make that happen in all the schools.
And if we're aligned in our instructional practices, if our curriculum's aligned, if our PD is aligned, hopefully you'll start to see similar trends across the elementary schools, understanding that, obviously it's a different student population at each school, and there are blips that, you really have to, be mindful of, but not go crazy. I met with a team of teachers the other day. They were looking at some MCAS results, and they drill down to the individual question level to understand, where there might be gaps in their instruction. And so, but that's a great thing to do. The flip side of that is if you make major adjustments based on, a 1-year
Right.
data point, then you could be heading off in the wrong direction. So we got to be careful about how we respond to MCAS scores
Right.
generally. Yeah.
Because there's the strong component of the test-taking
Yeah.
ability in MCAS and collecting data. It's not just a simple collecting feedback about student success and student understanding. It's when you add the test-taking component to it, it's a...
And again, teach to the standards, and the tests will
Right.
take care of themselves.
Right.
And, what I wouldn't want teachers to feel the pressure to test prep,
Right.
as a way to drive up scores, because,
Exactly.
there's probably ways to do that, but I think the more important thing is to hit the standards and be aligned in our practices on that, so.
And that's what the message that I hope will come across to the principals and the staff.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think teaching to the test is a very bad idea.
Yeah.
So I think if you teach the standards well,
Right.
the results will follow.
Yes.
If you just teach to the test, which you can see there's certain places where that's been happening, and it's
Yeah.
just,
Right.
I don't think that's effective, because I don't think the kids really understand what they're learning.
Right.
And the teachers aren't having fun doing that
Yeah.
either.
That's
I'm sure that's,
Well, I appreciate you saying that, and I know our administrative team would appreciate that approach as well, and our teachers.
No, we want our teachers teaching
Yeah.
to the standards,
Okay.
not teaching to the test.
Yeah.
And I hope that our community will embrace that philosophically, that's what we want, so the teachers aren't feeling, the staff isn't feeling that pressure of the test scores, the test scores, the test scores. We want our kids to learn. We want our kids to be thinkers. We want our kids to be learners. And test takers is part of that, but it's only one part. And it doesn't, as you said, it doesn't tell the whole story, and
Right.
nor should it.
Right.
So,
Right.
okay.
So a couple other things from my report, I'll make it quick. Thursday night, I'm excited that our substance abuse coordinator, response coordinator, Shelley Warren, is going to be meeting with the combined PTOs over at Center School. That's at 6:30. I feel like we're making some important steps this year in terms of drug use education. We've begun to talk with the elementary principals about some units of instruction that we can roll out at the elementary level in ways that are developmentally appropriate. And so that's taking shape. School safety teams, thanks to Tom Mazza and Sue Bertrand for leading up the safety teams that we've talked about. quick note, if you, I don't know if you can see it from the street, maybe when the leaves fall, you can. At the corner of Grassy Gutter in Williams, we have set up with the support of a LEAF grant, High Five Adventure Equipment. It's a outdoor challenge course, low element outdoor challenge course, and so teams of teachers, teams of students have been involved in going through these challenges as a way to build trust and to build group problem-solving skills, and it's exciting. Rita Hawker and the rest of the PE staff are certified and trained in how to run students through that equipment, and our administrative team is going to be out there later this month on the low element outdoor challenge course. Mr. Maz is especially excited about that. The Japanese Cultural Exchange, our partners from Takakawa Nishi High School will be arriving in the district at the end of October, and we will formally receive the delegation on Friday, November 4th. If any school committee member is available and wants to stop by, we can get the time to you. I'm not sure specifically what time they'll arrive, but Friday, November 4th in my office, and then I offered for you some dates of importance.
If we could just, I'm sorry to
Yep,
interrupt
I'm sorry,
you.
yep.
If we could definitely receive an email about the welcoming,
Okay.
that would be great.
Can we make a note of that, Diane?
Now,
Thank you.
that's, we'll be coming back from MASC, some of us. the
Oh, it's Friday,
conference.
November 5th.
Yeah, that is the date of the MASC conference. I will be coming back Thursday night, so I'll be here
Okay.
for the arrival
Oh, okay.
to receive that delegation. And a lot of credit to Lori Snyder, who nurtured this program for many years, LHS social studies teacher, and she has been supported by the administration over the past 10 or 11 years in the school committee and prior superintendents. So it's a signature program for Long Meadow Public Schools, and my hope is that we can continue to kind of nurture that exchange. It's a lot of benefits to us. So. And then some dates of importance on your report. October 27th, Rachel Simmons, author of The Curse of the Good Girl, coming to the district through the work of the Special Programs Committee. So we hope to have a good turnout that night, October 27th. And the Leaf Gala, November 5th, Twin Hills Country Club, 6:30. Excited for that. So, yeah.
I just want to add something about that close for community, where did it go? Community close, or close community.
Yes.
They have I think I got an email today from them, and they have a survey out to all parents asking about their knowledge of drug use of their children and not themselves. So if you like taking surveys, take it.
That's right. It's, I think that's on our website. Is that correct, Diane? Have we
Yes, it
put-
is on
And I plan to blast that out in an email to our parents as well.
Oh, okay.
So it's a ambitious survey that hopefully gives us a snapshot of community trends with regard to drug use and abuse. And the Close Coalition is doing some great work, and for me, I hope I can continue to support their activities. Thanks for mentioning the
Oh,
survey.
you're welcome.
Yeah,
I just
yeah.
remembered because I did it. And then the other thing is I've been to the Japanese Cultural Exchange meeting presentation, and it was wonderful. And I believe it was in the morning last time.
Oh, good.
Just letting you know.
All right.
Stephanie?
And I just wanted to plug Chasing the Dragon. That's one of Close's initiatives that's going to be playing here. And the Chasing the Dragon is a film that was put out by the FBI, and it's apparently extremely powerful. And they show it to some of the kids in the high school. Westfield is one school that I heard showed it to all of their students. But here they showed it to some and decided to push it a little bit to the older kids. But what is great about the showing on November 1st, it's going to be here at the high school, is that there'll be discussion afterwards, after the film. But I'm hoping that we can encourage parents to come out and view the film. It's something that is going to be shown at the high school and has been shown at the high school. And I think it's a really important film. I have not yet viewed it yet, but from what I hear, it can be hard to watch at times, but extremely powerful. So while we moved it to the older kids, Westfield showed it to everybody.
What's the
because,
subject?
This is on heroin abuse.
Oh, okay,
Yeah, so
okay.
I'm hoping heroin, opioid, I'm hoping that maybe we can publicize that particularly.
Yeah, so we'll get it out again. I've sent it out via email and.
Closer to the
yeah,
date, maybe.
Right, absolutely. I hope there's a great turnout for it. In fact, the first part of their two-part film series is tonight. It's going on as we speak. They're showing a film called The Spectacular now. It's over at the
Yeah.
Storrs Library, so.
And I just remembered Chasing the Dragon is shown when we have a school committee meeting here, so I might go in and out,
Yeah.
so I can be there.
Is that appropriate for kids?
It is, I don't believe so.
We should specify.
Right, I think if they're older, but it really is being shown to the older, so it would, Shelley Warren is someone you would want to check in with that about as far as the age, but,
I think just to communicate that when the email blast goes
Yeah.
out.
I think, yes, and I think that Shelley was going to in some fashion, I'm not sure how she was. It's technically, it is something you can watch online. So if you can view it ahead, if you're thinking maybe your child wants to go and you want to bring your child, you can view it. It's online, it's put up by the FBI. You can Google Chasing the Dragon, you can view it ahead of time. What this offers is a chance for discussion afterwards,
Right,
which is really important too. So if you are thinking about bringing your child, I think that's probably the best thing to do first. Is view it. I think it's 45 minutes, it's not long.
It's a really good question, and I think it came out of the speaker. Please remind me of his name, who came.
Chris Herron.
Oh, yes.
Chris Herron.
Yeah.
Because there were some kids in the audience, and I think he also presented to the high school, but then there's always a question as a parent of age appropriateness, and it's really helpful for whoever's putting out and putting on these incredible speakers and programs for parents to know, or at least have some mechanism to gauge appropriateness. I am very excited about Rachel Simmons coming to talk about Curse of the Good Girl. I have the book, and I think it's fabulous. And my question was also, is it appropriate for my middle school girls to attend? So it's a good question moving forward. Information that parents definitely need. Thank you, Marty.
Yeah, thank you.
And just one little note on the MCAS change with the computer incorporation this year. At some point, I think we do need to look a little bit about what kind of recurring costs will come up for us as a school district with equipment and maintaining equipment around this testing if it's a state requirement, because, that is going to have costs associated with it that we need to discuss as a committee, but I think we'll dedicate some time to that in the future. Thank you.
Thank you.
I have a brief report. If you were able to catch our joint meeting, we met with the select board to talk about early projections for the budget, and also we had members of the Finance Committee in attendance, so it was really good to have everybody together in one room and taking a first look at some of the numbers that, again, are still early, and some of the numbers that we'll be voting on in town meeting next week. I do want to encourage folks out in Long Meadow who want some feedback on the budgets. They can be dense and they can be confusing, so I would encourage you to reach out to people like Paul or the select board or members of the school committee if you have questions before town meeting or anytime during the school year about the budget. I don't want anybody to feel intimidated by all the numbers. It's no question is a dumb question, and I ask lots of questions about the budget. So I hope that parents will email questions and not be shy about asking questions of both boards and also questions at the town meeting. And we will be talking about that a little bit later in our meeting tonight. Nishal, do you have a report for us tonight, or
I do not.
You don't? Okay.
Just re-finishing.
Okay. And do we have any additional reports tonight? No one else has met. Okay, subcommittee. Liz, no.
Oh, no, we haven't met yet.
Okay.
Tomorrow and next week.
Okay. So we will move on to the finance subcommittee report.
Well, we met October 5th.
Yeah.
There was only one issue that came out of the agenda that's on school committee's agenda for consideration tonight is a memo in regards to the FY17 grants. So annually, the school committee would accept the grant awards based on the actual notification we received and the amount that Long Meadow will be receiving for the various grants we receive. So that is included in your packet. I do want to note that there is one minor revision, which is in the total between the Finance Sub and the School Committee. I updated the special education early childhood grant, so the amount on the document you received is correct of $13,170. Since it's not a spreadsheet, the total didn't change, which is what I'm used to. So the total should be $1,355,584, or $379 more than what is listed for the total on the document in your packet. But all the individual grant amounts are correct. Oh, it's not in the packet? No.
I think it was online.
It's online. Definitely it's online, because that's where I picked it up. I'm sorry.
I saw it in here. Maybe not.
But the bottom line is we're just so the finance subcommittee
Yeah,
looked at all the
I
grants.
can read them off. There is the IDEA grant, which is a special ed grant we received for $755,171. Special education early childhood grant for $13,107. Special education program improvement grant for $23,830. The Title IIA grant, which is a teacher quality grant, for $48,031. Title I grant for $304,335, and the Medco grant for $211,110, for a total grant award amount of $1,355,584.
Okay, so why don't we get a motion on the floor, and then we can discuss if anyone has anything.
I move on the recommendation of the Finance Subcommittee that the school committee accept the FY17 grants as specified in the document titled FY17 Grant Award Memo dated October 18, 2016.
Second.
Discussion.
I can pull up the memo if you want. It might take a second. You're okay?
That's good.
Okay.
Any questions or discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? Okay.
That's it for
Is that it
finance.
for
Yes.
finance? Yes.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Tom. Capital planning. So Michael isn't here tonight, but the only update I believe we have is that the list that we approved at the last meeting, the prioritized capital planning list, was submitted to the town manager already. Is there anything else on the capital planning end?
At this point, I do believe at some point, either in the fall or early winter, we usually have a conversation with either the chair of the capital planning committee or members of the committee to discuss any of the projects that the town manager recommends to capital. So
Okay.
that would probably be the next step in terms of the representative and maybe the chair, the superintendent, myself, to participate in.
That'd be great. One of the issues that was brought up today at the Williams Forum is the locker situation there. And I know that the Williams locker replacement item did not make it onto the list that we submitted to the town. But based on that feedback, I do hope we might be able to look at, I don't know, what our options could be, if there's a way to access used lockers, at least in the interim, while we're waiting for new buildings, because they're so pitiful at Williams. So I hope that that's something we can continue to discuss at the committee level and at the town level. So, you know, again, it's not per se a health and wellness, safety emergent issue, but it is a big issue, a functioning issue for Williams that was raised today. So middle school working group, segue.
We had our first of 2 forums today at 9 in the morning, and we had some good turnout, and we definitely generated a lot of discussion and gathered some great feedback. So we're looking forward to the forum tomorrow at 7 p.m. at Glenbrook, and hopefully from there we'll have a lot of information to discuss as a committee and move forward with. I think that's it.
I would really encourage people to go to that forum tomorrow night. It's the same presentation that we did this morning at Williams. And I think I think Superintendent O'Shea did a great job of presenting a lot of useful information. And it was really, it's kind of the preliminary stage. So we're really trying to get public feedback. And then the forum's a great way to do it. A lot of people asked questions. We answered the questions as best we could. And if you give us questions that we can't answer at the forum, we'll try to get an answer. So I think it's a pretty effective method, and we're also going to videotape tomorrow night's forum as well.
Yep.
So if you can't make it, we'll have it on eventually.
Absolutely, yeah.
LCTV.
We'll make the link available and put it up on our website and get it out there, yeah.
I think there were a lot of good questions, and Marty, I thought you did an excellent job. Really appreciate the
Great job.
presentation you put
Yeah.
together. It was great. It was great having our town manager, Stephen Crane, there to answer some questions as well. It was very, very helpful. And I think it was a good start to the year, good dialogue, and hope to continue that tomorrow night at Glenbrook and throughout this year.
One thing that people asked at the forum is how do they get involved with the process? And so one thing people can do, if you can't make the forum, or you watch it on TV later, or if you just have questions of the committee, you can always send us the questions.
Mm-hmm.
So it's through our email accounts on the Long Meadow website, or you can contact the superintendent's office. But there's lots of ways where if things come up and you can't make the forum, you can still make your thoughts known to us or give us questions.
Yeah, I think that's a good point, because we're really trying to collect names of people who are interested in getting involved and volunteering some time to this issue around the middle schools. So if you can't make the forums or you can't make a school committee meeting, contact one of us or contact central office. I just repeated everything that Russ just said, but it was worthy of repeating. In the policy subcommittee, we met on October 7th. We have,
8th, I think, right?
It was at 8?
So we have 2 policies for approval. We did the first reading back in September, so it's policy JICH, alcohol, tobacco, and drug use by students prohibited. It's what MASC has out. And then the other one is IHAMB, teaching about alcohol, tobacco, and drugs. The same thing from MASC.
So why don't we get a motion on the floor for each of these? Do you want to start with one in particular, or does it not matter?
No, it doesn't matter.
Okay, so if someone can make a motion, and then we'll discuss.
I move on the recommendation of the policy subcommittee that the school committee approve the policy IHAMB, teaching about alcohol, tobacco, and drugs as presented.
Second.
Stephanie, did you want to say anything to?
Not about those. They're MASC's, their sample policy. Both of them are taken from there.
Okay. Any other questions? Okay, we'll take a vote. All those in favor? Thank you.
I move on the recommendation of the policy subcommittee that the school committee approve the policy JICH, alcohol, tobacco, and drug use by students prohibited as presented.
Second.
Discussion. All those in favor? Okay.
Now, you have first readings of the agenda format, physical restraint procedures, and physical restraint policy. I don't have a copy of the student activities account in the packet. I don't know if you did either. That might be missing, but regardless, I'm going to ask that you just ignore these first readings, because I noticed in Not in Time that they're edited, but they're edited based on our second meeting, and they don't include the edits from the first meeting, and then the edits aren't in bold, so you'll get a second reading if that's procedurally possible. So,
Bring back.
yeah,
And then next
we'll
meeting.
just bring them back then, yes.
Okay.
Well, but technically, we can still,
They're not,
the agenda format's okay, though.
nope.
What's missing?
So that one, I mean, it's enough, but we had said 3 business days preceding a committee meeting, because 3 days could mean the weekend, and it really should be 3 business days. We had
Oh,
talked about
okay.
that.
Yep,
So
I
that was
remember.
missing out of that. As far as everything else, it looks okay, so we could, the other ones can't be, but that one, I didn't notice anything else. But I was just erring on the side of caution that something's gone awry.
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay.
I just wanted to explain on the agenda format, what's the, not the attachment, what's it called? The
Procedure, no, or the
exhibit. The exhibit.
Yep.
That we should probably, well, it doesn't matter because we have the agenda in front of us, but the agenda format is part of, is the attachment to BEDB. And you can see from the agenda format tonight that we, in subcommittee, made some changes. So in the interim between now and the next time we do our first reading, if anybody has feedback about the agenda tonight, the flow, how it went, any suggestions, I would appreciate it. I did, we decided, I proposed that we have new business with guest speakers automatically bumped to the top of the agenda instead of me having to do it at any given meeting. I feel like it just makes sense if we have guest speakers and it's appropriate to plug them in early in the meeting. What else did we change? And,
No school committee comment?
Announcements and recognitions.
right, so instead of our traditional school committee comments, we plugged in announcements and recognitions, which the subcommittee discussed. Visitor comments would come first, and then school committee could make any announcements. And I think a lot of the announcements that we had in our reports probably should be plugged into that portion of the agenda. I think it would be good maybe in your report and in my report if announcements about forums or guest speakers, that sort of thing. I think that might be a good idea to do at the beginning of the meeting, and any sort of recognitions that are received by schools or students or staff would also be plugged in there. So anyway, I really have done a lot of thought, put a lot of thought into making the agenda more streamlined, and I hope that the committee's happy with it. Okay.
Jess, can I ask you a question?
Yeah, Liz.
So, as we talked about earlier, you're taking out the mission statement. Are you planning
Oh.
to revamp it or
Yeah, I
not
don't-
have it? Because I really think it's important in
Yeah,
the
so-
gist of things to have it in there.
My thought about the mission statement is this: if we're going to be reciting a mission statement, which I think is a great thing, to state your intent as a school committee, I think it should be created by this committee because it was created by a former committee. So I think we need to have ownership of whatever mission statement, whether it's the mission statement of the school district that we want to recite, or if it's a mission statement that we come up with in policy subcommittee and then present to the committee and discuss. We'd be open to those. But that was the reason I took it off, because I felt that whatever we have in place should be a decision of this year's committee.
Okay,
So,
that's fine, as
yeah.
long as we start discussing it.
Yeah, John Fitzgerald had recommended that we start, considering the district mission, reciting that at the beginning, so.
And I think when we discussed it, I'm open to whatever anybody wants at the beginning. I was just thinking, okay, we're good at the pledge. we do the reciting of the LCTV taping, and, you know,
Yeah.
that whole
It gets a
recital,
little
and it just got
robotic.
really long.
It does
so-
get a little
But if people
robotic.
find it important, then by all means.
I do think that there is value, even though it feels robotic, I think there is value in stating our intention.
I think there's
Truly.
value, but I don't know about every single meeting.
Yeah.
I mean, I think we
Then you don't
should-
hear it any longer.
Yeah. I mean, honestly, they said it every single meeting last year, and I don't remember what it is.
Right.
So I think it has value. I just don't know it has value every single meeting. That would be, but that's something we can talk about later.
And I feel like if one person wants it, then so be
Yeah.
it. Takes 2 seconds.
I mean, it's up to the committee. It's
Coming
it's
up
your
with a
agenda.
mission statement, though, I think is really valuable. You know, whether we recite it or not, I think as a committee, it would be a great thing to have.
Right.
Yeah, you'll need to devote some time to it. I mean, to write a good mission statement
Yeah.
takes some time. And one of the other approaches, and you saw it with Andy Churchill from the LPVC, is to identify core values. And sometimes those can be more purposeful, and I think they're more meaningful, but maybe easier to arrive at because you're talking about a single word or a phrase as opposed to, a statement that you have to wordsmith and agree on. Just a thought.
Yeah.
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 No,
That's not
it'll
bad,
take
yeah.
some time, but I think it's
Yeah.
worth it. I mean, it
Yeah.
will guide how we,
Yeah. You can always put it at the bottom of your agenda as well, as a footer. I know you have some language already there, but you could add to it perhaps.
Oh, and just have it on the agenda instead of necessarily reciting it. Or we
Yeah.
could just have it on the agenda. We could have it there, but it doesn't necessarily
Well,
need to be.
I think Liz is right that there's some benefit to reciting it. I'm just not sure about every meeting. But I think, because people don't see our agenda, I think there's some value to saying it. But, we could talk about some other meeting. We don't really have it on the agenda for tonight.
Do the kids in the beginning of the high school, do they do Pledge of Allegiance and a mission statement? Because
They do
East Long Meadow
they do
do.
the pledge in a moment of silence. I'm not sure if they recite a mission statement or core values.
Okay.
I'm not sure. I mean,
No.
At the high school.
Okay.
There you go.
East Long
Better
Meadow
source
they
of
do.
information, right?
I know, like, St. Mary's Academy does it
Mhm.
every morning. I've noticed that. They do their mission statement every morning.
I just think that, we are working here at least 3 years, and there are a lot of things to focus on, and it's good to remind ourselves why we're here.
Okay.
Policy sub?
I will also say about the physical restraint, one of the, since you have it in front of you, that had kind of been batted around a little bit was the issue regarding timeouts. And I think going forward, what I'm looking to discuss in policy sub is, there's a little blip about timeout, but developing a policy specifically regarding timeouts, what they are, exclusionary, inclusionary, and DESE had put out guidance regarding timeouts. And so it's not a restraint, so the idea is to get it off of the restraint policy and in its own policy.
Okay.
So that'll be something we'll discuss when we meet again. But stay tuned for the second reading of those.
Okay. So, Marty, you're next up. Superintendent's annual unfinished business, your annual plan and self-evaluation.
So, at a meeting on September 27th, I had presented to you my annual plan, which consists of a professional practice goal and a student learning goal. And so the documents that are in your packet are documents that were originally presented on the 27th, but I wanted to make sure you had ample time to consider it. The professional practice goal relates to family and community engagement and my intention to develop effective partnerships with staff, family, and town officials and community organizations. The student learning goal relates to the leadership, I believe, that's needed to effectively implement the elementary science curriculum and to ensure that we're aligned in our efforts to implement the new science framework. So those are the two goals that I would put forth to you for my annual plan. It would be the basis for, but not completely inclusive of, the evaluation that would ultimately be conducted at the end of the year. So happy to answer any questions, but would hope we could get a vote to approve that plan.
I move the school committee approve the annual plan and superintendent goals for 2016-2017 school year as presented.
Second.
Discussion.
So I just have a quick question. So on the component 3 goals of the district improvement plan, that has nothing to do with your, or I mean, it doesn't not have anything to do with it, but that's not where we're.
That's technically part of the annual plan, but there's not a district improvement plan in place for me to work off of, so that is in development right now.
Okay.
But ultimately, that would be incorporated into this annual plan. So there's really 3 components to a superintendent's annual plan.
I see. Okay.
The professional practice goal, the student learning goal, and then the district improvement plan.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Russ, did you have a question or not?
Nope.
You were going to say something.
I was going to make a joke and say I had a lot of real issues with this, but then so now I made the joke.
That was a good
It was-
decision. No.
I thought it looked fine.
Okay. Any other questions or for, okay.
Things are going too easy for Marty, isn't it?
Well, it's- And, as you found out when you put together your goals, it's tough to incorporate everything that's important to you. And so, these are 2 areas that kind of rose to the top for me. But certainly there's many, many other areas that will be part of my focus this year.
And we will be talking to you about all of them.
Absolutely.
All right. All those in favor? Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Marty.
Appreciate your support.
Can I just make one comment?
Sure.
Yes.
I just want to bring to attention, it kind of slid by, but the fact that Marty has already started the drug education program at the elementary school in such a quick, short amount of time is amazing and wonderful, and I just wanted to bring that to light because that was something that was brought to attention in the summer, and we're in October, and it's already off the ground, so.
Yeah.
And a lot of it is harnessing a lot of the energy that was already in place and kind of being focused. And so, there were some key building blocks in place, but obviously I want to continue to support that. It's important to me. I think it's important to our families. I've heard that, and I know it's important to this committee as well. So.
I think you're being
Thank
humble,
you.
though, because you
Thank you.
you really are. Your responsiveness to committee members and to community members has been incredible, and we've been getting such good feedback from people in the community about the job that you're doing and being out there and talking to people and getting feedback and really taking action on that feedback.
Thank you. Appreciate that. Thank you.
Yeah.
We're very grateful. all
And
of
appreciate
us.
the support of the committee, and hopefully the work I do reflects the directions that you're interested in bringing in this district. So,
Yeah.
thank you.
So we need a motion for the first overnight field trip request, please, for Williams Middle School.
I move on the recommendation of the superintendent that the school committee approve the overnight field trip request for students from Williams Middle School to travel to Gettysburg and Philadelphia, Pennsylvania on May 31st, 2017 through June 2nd, 2017.
Second.
Any discussion? Oh, sorry, okay. All those in favor? And the next one
I
is...
move on the recommendation of the superintendent that the school committee approve the overnight field trip request for students from Glenbrook Middle School to travel to Washington, D.C. on April 27th, 2017 through April 29th, 2017.
Any discussion?
Second.
Give me a second.
Oh, sorry.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor? Diane, do you shoot off the emails to the principals tomorrow or tonight about
I will
that?
send them those
For field trips?
Those forms, I'll write on them that you approved it and send it to them tomorrow.
Oh, good, okay, thank you. I know that the students and the teachers are always eager to hear back about the field trips as soon as possible. So the last substantive item on our agenda tonight is the FY18 budget. And really, this is just an extension of a little bit about what I was discussing before, that we met with the select board to go over the early projections and really educating ourselves about what the numbers look like for this year. And I wanted to put it on the agenda, for discussion if there are any residual questions or anything that came out of the meeting that our committee wanted to discuss tonight. Russ?
So after that meeting, I spoke with Mr. Mazza and the superintendent about the presentation, just to make sure I completely understood it correctly. So the presentation we got was a little bit confusing because the $350,000 that the town is moving from free cash to OPEB and capital is listed in the presentation. So we're getting, roughly 1.2 million in new monies from the state and from, well, really they only have 100,000 from the state for kindergarten. And then they have the rest of it is really property tax increases. So then they show the 350 coming out of that number, but that 350 is really coming out of one time, it's coming out of free cash. So I think what's happening is that 350 is really being shown again there because it's being rolled into this coming year's budget, FY18. So the net effect of that is really the 350 comes out of free cash, and then there's 350 coming out of the 1.2 million, so 700 total. So over that 2-year time period, it'd be 700,000 going into OPEB. Plus, they're adding below that line, then on top of the top half of the page was incoming revenue. The second half of the page was outgoing cost. So there's also a little bit additional because in FY17 it would be 350. FY18 it's a little more than that because the property tax base goes up. So there's like 10,000 more or something like that. So I think what's going to happen most likely is that a town meeting, if the 350 gets voted, then the town's going to look at that as that's now part of their budget. So the next year, what we kind of discussed or debated last year was, you have to look at the decision, the policy decision that you want to add more money to capital and OPEB. So instead of saving 2.5%, you're going to go 2.75. It's that incremental difference, and that policy difference equals 350,000. So last year we argued about whether that 350 that incremental difference should be added or not. This year I think what's going to happen is if town meeting votes this number, then the town's going to say, well, you're not asking about whether they add the additional savings. It's going to be, do we cut their budget in order not to cut the 660,000 that we're looking at on our side under that projection. So I think it's going to be a little bit more difficult conversation because the way it's framed after town meeting, if it gets approved, is going to be different. It's going to be us essentially asking for them to cut what's in their budget, essentially, in the presentation. That's not necessarily what's actually happened because town meeting is really only moving free cash to a different line item. That doesn't mean it's in their budget permanently. But I think that's the way the conversation is going to be framed, so that's something we need to be aware of. The other thing I'd say is 660,000 is a lot. I mean, last year we were looking at 250 for the 4 teachers at Williams, if that happened. So, you're looking at 12 staff members maybe potentially at 660,000, plus you got unemployment costs. So, these are all preliminary numbers, but I just, that night looking at it for the first time, I wasn't totally sure I was looking at it correctly. I think I was at the end of the process, but I just think as a committee, we need to talk about those things to make sure we all, grasp what was presented, and if we have questions, we should talk about it now, because it's going to get more contentious later, probably.
I have a question. That 350 that they're moving out of free cash, did they typically count that in their budget for the next year, what you're talking about, when they're moving it? Is that
I haven't
the
seen
practice?
other employers doing that, because
Have
it's-
they done it, though? Do we know?
Well,
Because
I
they
think-
move that free cash all the
I think it
time.
depends when you say do they include it. So they're using, if you ask, do they include that as a source, meaning a revenue in subsequent years, the answer would be no. They're including it in FY17 because they need to increase revenues to meet the expenses that the budget has. So the two warrant articles for next week are to increase the amount of revenue that's budgeted in 17 to meet the policy goals that the select board has for OPEB and for capital. Back during the process, in order to balance the budget, they didn't appropriate or plan to spend to the full amount that their policy calls for. So they're making up for it, I guess, for lack of a better term, through the town meeting next week to increase the amount of money that is now in FY17's budget. So those figures, those
In
expense
FY18?
amounts will be in FY18's expenditure side. What Russ is referring to in terms of the 350 on the revenue side is that they're not planning on using that free cash as a source in FY18, which is why there's such a wide gap in how much revenue we're going to have compared to the increased expenditures, at least at this preliminary stage, in FY18. I do want to make one correction, though. The 350 includes $100,000 that was in FY17's budget for the kindergarten. The 250 additional is for the two policy pieces.
Oh, okay.
So just, if you look back at the bottom of the sheet, they do have $100,000, which was part of the operating budget. That was, when we talked about the whole kindergarten program,
Yep.
we talked about $100,000 in additional Chapter 70 money coming a year after the program gets implemented. So they put $100,000 in 17's budget from free cash to support that transition for 1 year.
Okay, so it's really 250.
250, yes.
What's
for
the
policies.
250 for? What is that covering?
127
OPEB
is
and
associated to capital, and 122 is for OPEB.
And those they plan on carrying, that capital amount, they're going to keep carrying over
Correct.
Well, that's,
and build it into their budget, but
It's
this
built
year
in,
they're
yeah.
using free cash to cover it.
Correct.
right,
So it's going to take from somewhere.
well,
Correct.
but I think the thing that gets confusing is that it's a policy that the select board created that's then become part of the revenue side of the budget, which is confusing, because it's an assumption in the revenue side of a fixed cost. And when we think of a fixed cost, we're not necessarily thinking about policies or assumptions. We're thinking about what's the revenue source, and then what are our commitments, and then what are our policies. And I think where the confusion is coming in, and I don't want there to be confusion at town meeting about this, is that a very specific policy of the select board is being incorporated into the revenue side.
Expenditure side. Their policy
Expenditure side.
is affecting the
Expenditure.
expenditures
Thank
because they
you.
are appropriating so much money for capital and OPEB.
Right.
The revenue, in order to meet the expenditures in FY17, had to be supplemented with free cash in order to balance the budget.
Right.
But in terms of the presentation from that joint meeting, the presentation does not anticipate using free cash or one-time sources.
Right, it's using tax money.
It's using the tax
So,
revenue.
but that's what people need to understand, that's really, I think can be very confusing, is that the policy to, and is it an increase in OPEB and capital contributions, or is it the same
Well,
carryover?
My
But-
recollection, and Russ might recall better than I do, I think the 17 budget, it had an incremental increase of 0.25%, at least for capital, and then maybe another different percent for OPEB above FY16.
Okay.
And they weren't able to accomplish that increase in the budget, which is why they deferred it basically, and now they're going to make it up through the use of free cash.
And the issue is, if it was $1 million, if the budget was $1 million, it's almost like showing next year's budget, we're working off $1,250,000.
Right.
And that's not really what the budget was. That's what the budget is once we take money out of free cash. So.
I think that's what's confusing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That piece of I thought the presentation was good overall. That piece was confusing.
Well, because it's a really big philosophical assumption that's being made that the town will be voting on. So.
Yeah. And it's really.
In terms of what we're funding, when we talk about funding policies versus funding, what we're doing every day and what we need just to run the town and to run the schools, where are our priorities there? And it doesn't really, I think the struggle is it doesn't leave a lot of room for discussion about that. And I don't think anybody here is saying we should be contributing to OPEB, we shouldn't be contributing to capital. We all saw the capital list, how long it is. But, what are our capital contributions in relation to other communities? What are our OPEB contributions? What do they look like compared to other communities? And what will voting this budget, what will the implications be of voting this budget for us as a school system in terms of, potential tough decisions in the spring?
Yeah. We're opposed.
I was just going to say, so
Liz.
at the town meeting, will one of you bring that up? Because I'm sure the select board is not going to explain that.
Okay.
Do they need this money? This is a fall town meeting, which is typically meant to tie up loose ends. So do they need that free cash at this moment to pay for those capital projects? And we're questioning that carrying it forward to FY18, but
Right.
fall town meeting is typically, they're moving free cash to an account to, I would imagine, pay off.
No, just save.
Then it would
OPEB
go
is
into the
strictly
stabilization fund. It wouldn't go in, where is it going?
So the OPEB piece is going into a stabilization fund. It's setting money aside for expenses that the town will incur at a later date
Right.
associated to retirement, basically for employees later on.
But I don't think it's stabilization. It's going to OPEB trust.
OPEB trust, sorry.
Because stabilization counts towards their bond rating.
Right.
I asked that because what they're doing is moving money from something that helps our bond rating to some other things that don't
Because OPEB and capital don't have any impact on our bond rating.
at the moment. They're
OPEB
trying
does
to
not.
make OPEB, but
OPEB
right now
does
they
not.
don't count.
Not at this point.
But outside of that OPEB, where is the other?
So the capital is a line item in the town's budget, so they have approximately $1.5 million already appropriated in FY17. So this additional money would increase that amount and meet their policy requirement of 2.75% of the operating budget be designated and appropriated for capital projects. If it's not approved, it would mean there's less money to fund projects in FY17. So the list that we submitted, other departments,
Or does
By
it mean that we
18.
still have time to make that decision about whether we're going to fund those projects?
well, you wouldn't have time because after this meeting, there's this annual town meeting, but to take action in the 17 budget wouldn't really leave much time left to get a capital project done in 17.
I think your question is, are there projects in the pipeline that this additional money is needed for?
Well, my fall town meeting is generally to tie up loose ends. They're tying up a loose end where they didn't meet their policy of having a certain amount in their capital fund, and so that's essentially their loose end. So they don't have a specific bill that they're paying, but they want a certain amount in that fund. And then going forward, it's going to be carried over into their budget that they couldn't fund, but are funding through free cash.
And I think it will be used to approve a long list of projects that
Yeah.
otherwise, one or two might not get funding for.
But do they usually spend the full capital amount every year?
I think they fund projects, and then if they don't use the full amount based
Just
on
goes back
pricing
to free
coming,
cash.
in lower than what's anticipated, it goes back to the capital
What-
fund.
what I don't, and I'm not sure about town meeting, because I don't disagree with the idea.
No.
I think it's more about the way it gets presented to us as part of the budget.
Right.
And how it might play out later, which I'm not sure we can really talk about at town meeting, because I don't know for sure that's going to happen, but.
Right.
But I do think, I know the presentations we keep getting are, we need more money in free cash and stabilization to help the bond rating, and yet we're going to take money out and put it in OPEB, which right now doesn't help that. And then the question is that really, I guess, which is the priority? Is it OPEB or helping the bond rating? If we're going to have a DPW project and potentially middle schools at some point in senior center, which one's more important, the OPEB or the bond rating? And that's something I guess that's a question for town meeting.
Right.
But I don't think town meeting's really going to get into that. My guess is both of those will pass because they seem like logical, logical warrant article. I just think for the budget process, it's going to be used potentially in a way where now we're trying to cut their budget instead of avoiding an increase in a certain decision.
Right. It's just that, that decision not to fund the OPED and the capital was made last year. So for them to change their mind kind of at the end has long-term effects for us. And
It could.
the other thing is, is that two separate votes? One for the OPED, one for the capital?
I
Because
think
that's
they're
what
two
you-
separate warrant articles,
Okay.
yes.
I just wish that maybe we could just ask them to explain it, like what you were saying, because I don't think anybody knows that.
Liz, can you just, the first statement that you made before you asked Tom the question, I didn't catch. Could you explain?
I don't remember.
You said last year there was a discussion.
Oh, well, just when we were, at the table for budget.
Right.
When we had needs and we were making compromises to meet our needs,
Mhm.
they made the decision not to fund those two areas fully. But now they've decided to fund them fully.
Yeah, and
Okay.
I think we are going to have to compromise with the town, but part of that compromise, we're going to be right back at the same thing. It's how many people do we cut versus the policy decision. That's part of it, but even if we have 660 and it's 250, we still have a problem with the budget unless something changes. Their projections don't show any money from the state coming in, but historically we get around 100,000 usually. So that's 100,000 there. We got a $250,000 policy decision. We have 660,000 in the red right now under the projection. We still have a problem, so we're going to have to figure out what to do about that. But it's early on, so hopefully the numbers will look different.
Should there be an amendment so that I'm just thinking out loud, that 350 is moved out of that category? I don't know.
Well, it's really
In
just
terms
the
of approving-
presentation to us. If it didn't get presented that way, I'd have very little concern about it, because I think the warrant article, it makes sense. It makes sense to try and save more money for capital and OPEB. I'm just worried that it's going to be presented in our budget discussions as now we're trying to cut their budget.
Maybe you have an opportunity Friday, you've got the joint administrative meeting, and so it could be part of the discussion there.
I see it as a
Bless you.
discussion, not a town meeting.
Yeah.
Because it really is about the budget going forward and what they've done, to make a budget work that they couldn't actually fund outside of free cash.
Yeah, no,
So I don't know.
we definitely are planning to have this discussion with them. We're having a joint meeting on Friday, so we'll definitely talk about it then. I was just trying to get a sense from the committee tonight before the meeting about, what we might want to propose or what we might want to discuss at that meeting.
At what point do discussions start taking place? I always, when I hear teachers being cut, it's like, nails going down the chalkboard. And I always feel like, okay, it's the last minute thing. We're going to, At what point do you engage the principals and start talking to the school about where we're at? And I know we're on an extremely lean budget and things are cut, but the last place I would want to cut are teachers. So when does that discussion start? And it's a big discussion about looking at what's working, what's not, and what's going to change and what's going to move. And I know there's so little, and salaries are the biggest part of the budget, and so you always look there, but I really don't want to look there.
Yeah. So we've begun those discussions. Tom has described for the administrative team the projections that we heard from Paul Pasterzik, and so they're aware of, how this, could shake out or what the projections look like. So, even tomorrow, it's on our administrative agenda just to begin to talk about the FY18 budget and what are our priorities, what do we want to ensure that we protect, are there any investments that we feel we need to make, are there any opportunities to save money without affecting services. So, those are ongoing.
Okay.
And as you get closer to, after the governor's budget is released in January and your revenue projections are a little more solid, then the discussions become more tangible. They slowly solidify, I guess, the discussions. It's hard because you want to know right now what are we looking at for FY18? What's the next school year looking like? But Paul even said to the joint boards that these are conservative projections, and he should be conservative at this stage.
Yeah, the issue last year was it never changed. It was conservative forever.
Yeah.
So we ended up with last minute back and forth to try and figure out how we were going to compromise. But the problem with 660,000 is that's definitely staff. I mean, we could try to get some of that money from other areas, but we'd have to lay some people off. Because even if we can come up with 200 grand by some miracle, which we had a hard time doing last year, we got 250,000 last year, but out of staffing really. And we tried to do it based on enrollment and other things. And then we cut some other monies in other areas, but it's other than the technology line, which you brought up, I think, last year. Other than that, to come up with that type of money and even in that line, there's reasons why you can't really.
No, I'm not suggesting you could ever. I mean, that $600,000 figure is too huge. I'm just thinking in general, I just don't want to get down to the wire. But no, we need to discuss.
But that's what's so concerning about this situation, is what are we committing ourselves to with the budget in terms of staffing and protecting our staff and what we believe we need as a school district down the line. Because even though it's early in the year to be having those nitty-gritty discussions, some very important decisions are potentially going to be made at town meeting with very strong implications for the core services that we provide as a school district.
I mean, I gave the checking account versus savings account analogy, but the thing I'm uncomfortable with is, let's say normally we save $100 towards our savings, and now we're going to save $125, but in order to do it, our checking account's going to go negative by 25.
Right, which means something has to be sacrificed, and it's a question of where is it going to be sacrificed.
Yeah, I mean, I'm all for saving, but when you're saving out of a checking account that's in the red,
right,
that's not normally what you would do, but so that's what I want to try and, now the flip side to that is I agree with the concept. It makes sense to save towards capital, and it makes sense to save towards OPEB.
But whose budget is it? I think the question is, whose budget is it coming out of? They couldn't fund it for this year, FY17. So who's going to fund it next year? Is it coming out of our budget, or is it coming out of their budget?
I think they're kind of splitting it. It looks like but because their side, we have 660, they have 250, but we're a large share of the budget, so I think the issue is.
So it would be disproportionate, though, since
we're
a greater percentage of the overall budget.
But a greater percentage of OPEB is on our side because we have most of the employees. And capital, that's really streets and everything, so that's a different issue, but.
Okay.
Yeah.
When do we meet with them again?
The joint we don't
So you have a joint admin meeting with them.
Right, but we don't have a joint meeting scheduled, and town meeting is Tuesday.
Even if you take the 250 out, though, it looks like all the departments are going to have to cut something to get to a number that works. Because the overall number was like 900,000, so.
And remind me, when they showed that, was that including the increased tax revenue from the newly assessed? No. So how much did he say that was bringing in?
100? Well, you're talking about the shops?
No, the new assessments of residences.
Oh, that doesn't kick in now.
When?
I think it would be the following year?
Yeah, I thought he said that that new assessed value doesn't necessarily impact the levy limit. It just extends out when we'll hit the $25 cap.
Right.
That it wasn't necessarily going to increase the 2.5% revenue increase of like 1.2, 1.3 million.
Right, you can only go so high.
Correct.
But it was bumping it a little bit. I don't remember what.
Yeah, I don't think it
What
was
is
substantial enough to make a dent.
Doing is,
There's more property.
I think it's more like a.
You can only increase it so much anyway.
Well, yeah, what happens is if your assessments go up, then your property tax rate goes down. The overall still goes up 2.5%.
Yeah.
That's, so, but the good thing with the 6% going up is that $25, he was projecting 1% each year, and it went up 6, so I would think it would go out 6 more years, but I don't know.
Yeah,
He's supposed to come up with a projection, but it definitely pushes off the $25 conversation for a while.
And this may seem like, I don't know, I wanted to ask Ben, and I meant to research it and didn't, but so the mill rate, your assessment goes up, your mill rate goes down. Why, is that statewide? Why does that happen?
Well, I think it goes back to what Russ was saying, because you're at a cap of how much you can raise in terms of new revenue. So as your rate goes up in terms of your assessed value, the per thousand rate will come down to meet that 2.5% increase.
Because you can only go 2.5 no matter what. So if the assessment goes up 6, that means your rate has to go down to get it to 2.5 overall.
To equal that value
state.
of
Yeah.
2.5%.
So,
Okay. So we will be talking to, discussing this during our meeting on Friday and at town meeting as well. Are there any suggestions tonight for future agenda items that came out of the meeting tonight that anybody wants to make sure on Michelle?
The only thing I had was, I forwarded everyone an email that I had received, and it's going to be entered as official correspondence for the next meeting, but it was based on recess time. And I've been approached by a lot of people about maybe adding more recess or adding recess where there isn't any in the 7th and 8th grades. So I know it goes kind of under Marty's goals and the health and wellness, and it falls under our goals, but I didn't know if maybe we could have a brief discussion about that after maybe Marty researches it a little bit or something.
Yep.
See
Find out
how it would
whether-
impact,
Yep.
the scheduling and everything.
Understand what our practices are and
Yeah.
at each grade level. Yep.
Go ahead.
I think with the middle school, in addition to an update by the middle school subcommittee, we probably should have an agenda item, maybe in one of the upcoming meetings, just to talk as a committee about where we're going next with that, with the middle schools.
Because you won't have a subcommittee meeting between now and then?
Well, have we
You
asked?
will.
Well, that, but the subcommittee is really just Michelle and I giving you, information.
Yeah, I know, we've been sort of lumping discussions into the subcommittee reports a little bit too. But yeah, we can do it as a separate agenda item.
Have we asked formally again, did we already do that for the joint meeting with them about?
We haven't done it yet.
Okay, so but we can do that separately, so.
So are
we going to ask for a joint meeting to discuss the middle schools? Is that, again, or have we done that? We haven't done that. Are we thinking about, I was looking to get something in the books if we
Yeah.
could.
So we can
because
discuss it on Friday.
Oh, okay.
In the meeting, the question is, are we looking to have or propose a joint meeting just to talk about the middle school issue alone? Or are we looking to have this to be bundled with a follow-up budget discussion?
I would think just the middle school for now. What do you think?
I just wanted to be clear about that.
I agree.
Yeah, I think maybe separating the two things might,
Okay.
I mean, while scheduling things together as boards is difficult, I feel like if we can accomplish that in separate meetings, I think the two things are just so different and the discussions are so different that and Marie
don't
had
think
really
we're
wanted
ready.
us to keep her updated on how things were going as
Yeah.
so we could handle it at the subcommittee level and go into a select board meeting, but I think it would be nice for all of us to discuss what we've come up with as a middle school working group and as a committee.
Okay, so at the meeting on Friday, I will propose that we send off emails to our individual boards for 2 dates. One is the budget follow-up, I'm not sure about the time frame for that, and then I would imagine the middle school joint meeting would happen first. So, just so you all know that I'll be requesting 2 separate meetings on Friday, and I'll let you know what the outcome of that discussion is.
Great.
And Russ, I think, will be there as well at the meeting,
I don't know, but
possibly.
yeah, I think with the budget, the next step really would be get to the finance subcommittee what a $660,000 cut might look like. I mean, what are the different options to get there? Because based on last year, I don't see the number changing dramatically from the town. So I think we got to figure out what it would look like and then have a meeting with the board and say, okay, this is what it might look like. What do we, is that really going to work or not? And then get into the compromise mode with them if we need to.
Okay.
But I think we waited too long to do that last time. I think we need
To do what, the joint meeting?
to come up with what we might need to cut, and because we kept thinking maybe the number would change and everything, but I don't think that really is the way this seems to have worked over time. So I think we should just start with, this is the number, what is that going to look like on our side? Tell them what it's going to look
Okay.
like, see what they think.
Okay.
And I think what it would look like on our side at this
I
point,
get
it would be fairly generic. I mean, we wouldn't be ready to provide too much specificity in terms of,
Yeah.
specific positions or services that would be affected. But
Yeah.
I think we could talk about it in broad strokes, probably.
Yeah,
And-
I think that would make sense, because I wouldn't want to scare people, but on the flip
Yeah.
side, we need to make it clear what it actually does
Yeah.
in general.
On the flip side, we do sort of need to know, like you said, if these numbers really aren't going to change early on, what the potential impact is on our budget.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a difficult thing, because you don't
It
want
is.
teachers that actually will never have a chance of being let go, or custodians, or whatever it may be. But on the flip side, till you get down to that type of discussion, it's hard to debate a budget. So we're kind of in a tough
It's
spot.
got to be tangible enough where it's, it will be meaningful to both boards, but not so specific that we're painting ourselves into a corner in terms of how we allocate resources and positions next year. And also, we don't want to create alarm for specific schools and specific teachers.
Yeah. We don't want to create alarm on that end, but we also want to avoid alarm on the other end of
Right.
last-minute scrambling,
Gotcha.
emergency meetings.
It's a balance, yeah.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
yeah, it's a difficult balance, but I think, like Russ is saying and Liz is saying,
But we ended up last time just looking at staff, so I guess one way to look at it is generically, how many teachers would we be talking about? Or if it was custodians or paras or combinations, what would that combination look like? That would at least give us a number.
Yeah.
he wouldn't tell us who it's going to be or what programs it's going to be, but
I think we're already down to our bare bones with custodians. I don't even know how we would even ever
oh yeah, I
continue to
don't.
make- No, I was
you know,
just
it's-
thinking that because of the discussion today at the middle school. I know you were just saying that arbitrarily, but
Yeah.
there's so many things that we've cut to the bone on the school side for so long. You know, that was just the one thing that popped into my head from a discussion I had after the meeting today.
Yeah, unfortunately, I think where our
Farm.
revenue is, we're probably going to be looking at cuts to some extent, and so will other departments, and that's the nature of the town we live in, unfortunately.
Right, and to bring it more to a global view, it's not just our town. This is what small towns with limited revenue resources and limited growth are dealing with and struggling with. And unfortunately, it does become sometimes I think it becomes a town versus school issue, and it's really not at all a town versus school issue. It's just a function of the way that our town governance is set up, and a function of the economics and the lack of money coming to small towns. So,
Yeah.
you know, it's not an easy issue on either side, and we are going to continue conversations with the town, and we'll continue working with them, and yeah.
On a different subject, if you're done with that one.
Yeah, go ahead.
I just wanted to ask, in terms of the health and wellness, the admin team that's being put together, I'm wondering if in that discussion, a discussion can be had regarding economic, I think DESE's category is economically disadvantaged students, and how we can make sure we're providing for all students. So one of them was the enrichment. Also, school supplies was another concern I had. And so different ways that maybe we can make sure, since they are identified through DESE, and we have that, to make sure that, that we're providing in the same opportunities. And that could be through funding through PTO. It could be pairing with a local nonprofit who I had reached out to, just making sure, we do a lot for surrounding communities, and I want to make sure that we don't lose sight of those within our community.
Okay.
So.
Yep, thank you.
Okay, so I need just a warrant motion is our last item.
I move that the school committee approve the warrant batch number, 2200 of the school lunch FY17 fund dated October 21st, 2016 in the amount of $50.
Second.
All those in favor?
And I move that the school committee approve the warrant batch number 3285 of the general fund FY17 dated October 21st, 2016 in the amount of $611,904.03.
Second.
All those in favor?
Should I just, okay. That's all we've got, too, right? Yep.
Is that it?
Yes.
Okay, motion to adjourn.
So move.
I can't make the motion.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
All those in favor? Thank you.